Hey everybody, welcome to Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul Murphy, your host. I'm joined tonight by Chris Morgan and Ricky Addington.
Wait, is that like your entrance music?
It is now.
Oh my gosh.
With some guitars. We are the Battle of Lost Souls podcast. Really happy to join you guys. This is the episode I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to record because I'm traveling. I'm in India right now. I don't have my normal mic, but my laptop mic normally does a pretty good job, so hopefully it all kind of comes out. I apologize if anything seems too weird with that, but I think it's better to get something than not have it.
Something's better than nothing. Also, if you'll remember that debacle that was me trying to record from Fort Pickett that time, nobody really complained too hard over that. So I think we'll be okay. At least India seems to have internet.
Some good editing and hopefully better internet. That's what we'll see.
It'll be fine.
The people have been very nice over here. It's been a really good trip. It was long coming from the U.S., but I mean, there's no other way to do it, really. And happy to be here. Really nice people. I'm going to try to get out and see the city while I'm here a little bit. So it's neat.
How's the food?
Well, I'm actually not a big fan of Indian food at home, but the food over here has been good. And I'm also in a bit of a westernized area. So I think I've had pizza for a couple of nights, and it was good pizza. There's
traditional Indian cuisine, yeah.
Well, there's an Italian restaurant in the hotel that is really pretty good, and the service has been great. Again, this has been a wonderful trip. We're very happy for the opportunity.
Well, good. I mean, next time I'm gonna make you take me as like your personal assistant.
That way, yeah. We'll see what we can do. But this is why I haven't been putting any hobby updates like on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, is because I haven't been painting anything for this last week.
You should just find someone while you're over there to paint models for you while you're working.
Oh, that'd be nice. But I'm missing it. I mean, the last thing I did was a unit of 10 Gretchen, just to try to test out my orc scheme, and we talked about that a little bit on the last show. And I'm just thinking about, I've been seeing other people's pictures, of course, checking these things still, and just really excited about getting back. But I can't decide on what cultures to pick or what cultures to commit to, because there's 2 or 3 that I think are really stand out. And I keep coming back. The one that I painted, the Gretchen, were Evil Sons. Now, I was thinking about doing an Evil Sons battalion. I still don't know what the end result of the armor list is going to be, because anyway, there's just a lot there to digest and to play. And even, I think you could probably eventually boil down into what is the most competitive 100% distilled, just no fat list. But the next 2 will be 98%. I mean, this is just a wonderful codex, if you ask me.
You're in an embarrassment of riches. It's like, find one that sucks. Open a Adeptus Astartes codex, and look at those, and then look at the chapter tactics. There's Ultramarines, right? And then when's the last time you've seen a White Scars army or anything? It's always Ultramarines, and then it's
always Gilliman Ultramarines.
Yeah. Oh, who we kidding? Okay, but that's the thing, is that book is very, in my opinion, very mono build right now. But when you look at the cultures, first off, the Orc Codex itself is just bonkers with variety, and then the cultures themselves, you could build the same list and apply every culture, and it would still be good and fun to play. It's just, it's how are you going to tweak it to get just that tiny little bit extra, I think.
That's fair. And I started looking through the stuff with, trying to make a decision, pouring over all the thing, and I came by the Drive-By Crumpin. The Drive-By Crumpin, this is not the one that allows you to attack from inside of a truck or battle wagon, which I think is actually real strong. I keep coming back to knobs, maybe even mega knobs in a battle wagon with a death roll up, because the battle wagon's hard to deal with, and then the mega knobs with 2+ saves and tons of wounds and I don't know. Regular knobs might be. I think point for point regular knobs are going to be seen a lot. But coming back to the mega knobs, I'm jumping around. But the Drive-By Crumpin, use this stratagem at the end of the shooting phase. Select an Evil Sun Speed Freaks unit from your army. That unit can immediately make a move as if it were the movement phase, but cannot charge this turn. This is at the end of the shooting phase. So if let's say it was a guy on a bike with some DACA guns or whatever, he was shooting and then get to move again.
So there are crisis suits.
But
there's 7th edition
the
crisis.
Speed Freak stuff has like a 14-inch move.
Yeah, that's strong.
So imagine you are, all right, let's take just a peek here. It has to be Speed Freaks. So let's imagine that you've got the Deathkiller Wartrek. The Deathkiller Wartrek has a movement of 14. Now he doesn't have a power claw, but he's got his, Snagga claw, and then which is +2 strength, D3 damage, whatever. He's got a bunch of attacks, a bunch of wounds. So I get it. He can't assault, but since he's a character, if you get him up within 3 inches, then he can heroically intervene.
That is correct.
I never would have thought to do that, let's be honest. But that's why I play in the mid tables. But yeah, dude, that is...
Well, that's a little generous.
Yeah, and... the mid... Oh, that's hurtful. Actually, I need to check my last standings. I think you're probably right. You can't Overwatch that either, can you?
The heroically intervene you cannot. So it's a pretty strong. I think that in itself is pretty strong. I don't know if that's operating on the intent. This is the kind of stuff I would put on the fact watch.
And how many command points is that to do that? One. Now Harlequins,
you can't heroically intervene on your turn. I'm sorry, this is the end of the shooting phase. So you'd have to be your opponent's shooting phase to use this. Again, I can't imagine that is necessarily the intent. So we'll see how that goes.
Does it say in the shooting phase or your shooting phase?
End of the shooting phase.
Oh, okay. That's fun. Harlequins have an ability that let them move, but it is limited to 7 inches. So you can't just go crazy across the board like that. So that's better. I like it.
Yeah. But I keep coming back. This is what I don't know if this will pan out. But in my mind, having these mega knobs in a battle wagon, would you put the death roll in the battle wagon and the wrecking ball in the battle wagon, and just throw it as far forward as you possibly can get, and also being Evil Sons to get the ability to charge even after you advance.
Red ones go faster.
And it does. I mean, all that stuff just adds up. You just you really, if your opponent is not aware of what the actual threat range of these things are, then they're going to kind of get caught. And so we're already going to see a return of screens because of the way the fly and the assault rules interact. So you've got to have the ability to clear out some of those screens. And this is where things like open top vehicles start to really shine. You can shoot out of them. This is where the Daka guns on bikes. And again, I don't know that the bikes are going to be the best choice either. I was a big fan of the knob bikes, or I've been talking about the knob bikes a lot, but regular old Ork war bikes might come back into it. And then the ability just to shoot and clear some screens, to clear up a little bit of room for your battle wagon to slip through. And then once the battle wagon slips through, then you can launch out all those attacks out of the knobs.
I don't know. When I imagine battle wagons, slipping isn't exactly what I'm thinking of what they're doing when they're getting in there. But I see exactly what you're saying. And I think that most people are planning on dealing with screens. Screens never really went out of style in my area. I think that's always something that's on somebody's mind is, okay, I have to find a way to peel that potato, get at the stuff on the inside. Or if you were a Knights player, then you just kind of bake the whole potato and eat the skin too. So.
Well,
I don't know. As a Knight player, Knights, they're not always going to put out enough attacks.
Let me caveat that. Maybe not a pure Knight player. Let's put it that way.
Okay, my bad. Continue.
No, my bad. Yeah. You've definitely got the potential though to just lay down withering hails of firepower from way down the field, and you can clear things out. Now, with Orks in particular, Ludas, awesome. Ludas are going to be excellent for that.
Ludas are going to come back. Okay, let's just take the economy of it is that every longtime Ork player has a bunch of Ludas already, so you're going to see them immediately. So what does that really mean? Is that the flyers, the like my Eldar flyer list would take a beating coming up against even your average Ork list. This is not an Ork who's invested into the non-mech guns or whatever. This is an Ork player who just broke out his 4th edition army.
Yeah, it's not safe. You used to have Hemlocks had just control. They had air superiority. They controlled the sky. Very few things were going to shoot a Hemlock down. You almost didn't even have to worry about it. You could do whatever you wanted with impunity, right? And now all of a sudden you go up against Orks who are, half the time only hitting on 5s, but all of a sudden they're always hitting on 5s. It doesn't matter what your
the Hemlock could be
bonuses
hitting
are.
on 6s, but then they pop the stratagem.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then it's automatically hitting on 5s.
And that's not even counting tractor, right?
Yeah.
So
no, that's good. But
it's a very scary time to be a Hemlock pilot.
If I know I'm jumping around, but I was talking about clearing the screens and whatever. But the boys, we have not mentioned this specifically, but the orc entry for the boys is any orc boy may replace its choppa and slugga with the shooda, meaning you could have mixed units. So in a group of 30 boys, you may have 10 shootas and 20 choppa sluggas.
That's interesting. It's interesting that they don't make it universal. I mean, with stuff like Custodian Guard, like sort of a mixed bag, and you kind of take that for granted, but because there's only a few models, it seems that might be something. That's something I hadn't even considered. Was like a 2010 mix. That's interesting. I like that.
So if you're like me, who goes into absolute mental vapor lock trying to figure out what is the most strategic thing to build as far as your orcs go, you could build 30 or 40 shootas and then 80 or so choppa sluggas, and I think you can find a use for them.
Now remind me, what's the base attacks on a boy? I thought it was like 2.
Two base attacks.
I think 2.
Right. So even shooter boys will have a 2 base attack.
Yeah, absolutely. They're not a slouch. And then with that the slugga with the shooter is an assault 2 18-inch range weapon.
And if you're bringing them as Goffs, then those 2 attacks, they're generating additional attacks on 6s. That you're not sacrificing a whole lot of attack power. I don't think.
And also the green tide rule. So add 1 to the attack characteristics of model in this unit that contains 20 or more models. So if you have over 20, that shooter boy has 3 attacks base.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all, except when it's coming at me. I
get that everyone understands that orcs have a lot of attacks, but we're talking about the strategy around clearing the screens, doing the things. How are you going to win against stuff but people have the layers in their army? Because that stuff still exists. It's all about the momentum and keeping it forward. And I think that goes into the orcs have lots and lots of tools. So when you're taking things like the battle wagon I'm talking about with the potential mega knobs inside, and I don't know, look, I think mega knobs look cool. Maybe I'm definitely attracted to the.
I'm down with the mega knobs. Right. I'm down with that.
Yeah. And we'll talk about the mega knobs here in just a minute. But if you put them all in that battle wagon, it's possible they won't be able to get involved, get around to anything until turn 2 or 3. But so you've got to be able to open up that screen. So the mega knobs, this is where I think that we're starting talking about points and points per wounds, and how I try to rationalize things is that I look at what like a base. In this case, we have a base unit. We have a knob that we can look at, and then we have this unit of mega knobs, which are better, more crumpier knobs, and
more crumpier ardor knobs with that 2-up save.
Yeah, with the 2-up save. So you start looking at the points of what I actually pay the point difference for the stat increases. So what I pay, and we'll talk about the points in a minute, but what I pay the X points for the additional wound and the additional armor save, and they both start with base 3 attacks. So you're really paying for that increased wound and increased armor save. So let's look at the points.
Yeah, see, and correct me if I'm wrong, but 3 wounds, right?
3 wounds, yeah. The functional increase outside of some weapon options is the wound and the armor save.
Yeah.
So a regular old knob is 14 points. The mega knob, this is no weapon options, base points, is 20 points. So right there, you have to kind of really ask yourself, would you pay the extra 6 points for +1 wound and +1 armor save?
No, regular knobs are a 3-up armor save?
Well, that's a better question. Yeah, you might be getting 2 armor save.
I think regular knobs are 4-up, right?
Yeah, I think they're 4-up. So, I don't know, you ask me, I'm going to say yes, but how much are the power claws?
Well, the power claws are going to be the same across the board. They both get the knob weapon upgrades.
Right, but just humor you. What's the point of a power claw, just so we can kind of get a feel for how much these guys are going to cost overall?
Power claw and the power claws are also mandatory on the mega knob. So that again, that's not counting war gear, but it all goes into how you're going to actually model them or not. Each model is armed with a custom shooter power claw and stick bombs. That's the mega knobs.
And they could have what is it called, like a razor kill saw or something like that?
Take your word for that. I don't have that right in front of me.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I seem to remember there being kind of like a double buzzsaw looking weapon that you could put on those guys too.
Power claw is 13 points. A kill saw is 15 points. 2 kill saws is 23 points.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, they've got the same armor save, but less movement than a Sanguinary Guardsman that costs a little bit more points. So, it's an investment. It's definitely an investment with these guys.
Yeah, I think that once you get out of the battle wagon is when you're going to start relying on that extra save. And when you start doing things like the jump, it's like there's going to be times where you want to use the teleport ability. What? That's a bad thing because the orcs have teleporters and psychic powers that jump things. If you have a weird boy that performs the jump psychic power, you want and you're a speed freak, and you've got Here We Go and a command point reroll, you're going to get these guys in combat. I think that's pretty good.
I think that's a pretty reasonable expectation.
I keep going,
and they're likely to survive Overwatch.
Yeah, I just keep coming back to the Mega Knobs, and I may regret this, but I think that's going to be my first build. Is I'm not going to build just the knobs. I'm going to go for the Mega Knobs, if only to be so disruptive because of things like the jump. Because there won't be every time where it's the best thing to do to put them in the the battle wagon and roll them across. I think they can go in a Gorkanaut if the unit's small enough.
I think you're right, and I feel like with the teleporter stratagem, these guys I think increased in effectiveness by a wide margin over their index counterpart. Regardless of point changes or things like that, you have an additional way of delivering not only them, but their ride right up front, right when you want it, and you're keeping it safe until you set it down. Like, there was no way to do that with Mega Knobs previously.
Yeah, you will not be putting a big fat unit of Mega Knobs in a Gorkanaut or a Morkanaut. They can only hold 6 models, and the Mega Armor or Jump Pack stuff takes up 2 spaces. Maybe late in the game. That Hail Mary.
Yeah, I'm not doing it.
Gorkanaut charge.
Slap them in there.
Oh, God, again, there's just so many things to do, like with Mob Up. Mob Up is going to be just such a frustrating stratagem to your opponent. It's going to be fun and it's themey, but it's one of those things to where your opponent's just going to do it to you, and you're just going to be like, man. It's not a fun sponge. It's not one of those things, but it's deceptively powerful. This is something that the Orks have been kind of toying with, or had a way to do forever, from all of recent memory. But I think in this edition, it is especially powerful because it amplifies the number of models that you'll be able to put your stratagem on.
Yeah, I kind of feel like Mob Up is going to make you feel like you stepped on a rake.
Well, again, I know we're jumping around, but this is all the stuff I'm considering for our list. Ludas, because I don't think I mentioned this before, but sometimes I think about what I'm going to travel with, and if you're traveling with 5 battle wagons or whatever, that's really difficult to do. Not you can have 5 battle wagons, but you could have 3 battle wagons and 3 bone breakers or whatever. But it's very difficult to do. So an all infantry-based army, you might have 200 or 300 models. That's a really overstatement, but it will fit in a travel bag, a travel case to go with. So you start thinking about Ludas, and so they're thinking about Mega Knobs, Ludas, or a bunch of knobs, a bunch of boys. How do I want to equip those boys? I think a mixture of the Shootas and the Chapa Sluggas is where it's at. I know we started off the conversation a couple shows ago about what's better, a Chapa or a Shoota, but you don't necessarily have to make the choice. And then you get to throw some tank buster bombs in those boys units. 1 in 10 can get one of those. Yeah, you got the boys with the Mob Up and with the cultures and with everything and all the attacks and stuff. I think that you can get a lot of work done in almost every section of this codex. And I hear people talking about, let me just finish my point. So with the Mob Up, and when you've got things like, say, for instance, if you were going to be using a stratagem on a unit, such as the fight twice or the one that lets you shoot twice from the Bad Moons, the showing off, these stratagems don't scale to the number of models you have in a unit. I think that's really powerful. Like, I'm almost surprised there's not something in here that says if the model is over 30, or if the unit is over 30 models, then it costs you 2 command points or something.
No, don't give anybody any ideas. The codex is still pretty new, Paul.
Well, I'm
actually under strict orders from one of my orc fan, like super fan buddies, to not talk about anything in his list because he's like messaging me like every 5 seconds. He's like, "Oh my gosh, how has nobody seen this? Nobody has seen this." And I'm like, "I'm going to talk about this." And he's like, "You can't. I'll kill you." And I was like, "Okay, you get one tournament." I said, "The next tournament, and then I'm talking."
That's really funny. Yeah, but what I'm going is, I think it's very powerful. So when you get, but it's good. It's not overly powerful. It's cool. I'm saying from a balance perspective, I am surprised that there wasn't a blanket rule, like if the unit is larger than 30 models, then it costs +1 command point or something like that. I mean, that's not in here, and nothing I've even heard. I'm just saying that the fact that it isn't means that you can get some incredibly strong things to do, and that's what you have to watch out for. Like if you see, and I don't even know if this factors into the strategy. Like if there are two 15-man units of Ludas next to each other, you might not want to kill a few of them in one unit, so they can't mob up.
Yeah,
Did you just say not kill?
Well, you might.
Are we playing the same game?
Well, you gotta be careful when you kill.
Or you better wipe all of them out.
Yeah, if they mobbed up
all
that
or nothing,
so they got 25 Ludas that then get to use the showing off or another stratagem or whatever, or the Mordaka stratagem. That's way worse than if it was just the 15.
And
you speak the truth.
It's also bad, just the same way that consolidating squads for the guard in ITC, how you can take away potential kill points from people. You can do that with orcs doing that as well. You know, if a unit gets low, you consolidate it into another one, and boom, they're not going to get a kill point that turn for that unit. So you can protect.
Assuming you have any shots left after trying to kill all those grots first.
Fair, yeah.
Yeah, and even like the stratagem, the extra stick bombs.
I love that one.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one that in the stratagem in the start of the shooting phase, select an orc infantry from your army. Up to 10 models in that unit can fire a grenade weapon in that phase instead of one. Oh, I guess it's only up to 10. Well, still, not as exciting, but...
but it's the ones who get to use it the best. Yeah, the tank busters. For serious. and then they get to do that twice.
That's my first question. Yeah, that is my first question. When somebody starts putting their trucks down on the table, which one has the tank busters in it? Okay, there. Cool. All right, let's play.
You bring up a good point because people keep saying like, "Oh, what about the commandos, Paul? What about the tank busters? I'm just gonna be wrecking face with all that stuff." Like, yeah, you will, but isn't it your opponent's job at that point, once they've identified what that is, to just take them off the table? Like, a lot of this stuff isn't tough. It's not overly resilient.
Yeah, but that's the beauty of orcs is, you're going to shoot a lot at that, but then that means you didn't shoot at this, and now this is in your face. So do I shoot at the big group of 12 bikers screaming down my throat, or do I shoot at the tank busters that are getting ready to get there? You know, you're going to pick one, and you're going to have to live with the other. And that's what makes orcs so exciting right now, is sometimes you're just going to roll the dice and it's not going to go your way, and you're going to watch the orcs, do what they do. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Or even as a non-orc player, I'm going to have a blast getting tabled by some orcs. It's going to be fun.
Talk about this. Taken down by the boys. I mean,
that's a great example. Do you let those tank busters get close, survive long enough to get to the Baneblade, or do you kill the bikes that are going to lock your Baneblade up, potentially turn one if your screens fall apart? So that's the thing, is a lot of this stuff, it's not tough, but it doesn't really have to be when you've got so many other things in your opponent's face that they've got to deal with that and not deal with the alternative. So they're going to survive just because of pressure.
That's fair. And I think that the orc player in that case has to really be in control of the momentum of the game. And I think it's easier for them to be in control of the momentum of the game because they have so many units, kind of the Green Tide philosophy. And a good opponent is going to have to wrestle that momentum back.
Well, we talk about on the show all the time when we're talking lists, is we want to force our opponents into choosing between two bad options, and not making the choice obvious. Oh, if I kill this, then this other thing isn't going to hurt me so much. Like, the target priority problem with orcs is going to be much worse, I think, than with many other armies. And their flexibility gives them a lot of ways to compensate for weaknesses in other areas. So I really think that you're going to have to be willing as an orc opponent to have some units you're ready to sacrifice in order to steal that momentum.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or you better have the best Overwatch in the game.
I don't know an orc player that doesn't roll a lot of sixes.
Well,
yeah,
that's just
I don't
weight
either.
of, weight of dice,
the
right?
opponent? Or you mean the opponent?
No, I mean your opponent. Yeah, with Orcs coming, you either better be able to sacrifice, or you better roll sixes with those aggressives.
Maybe it's finally time for your Baneblade with the 9 flamers or whatever.
Well, it's a Shadow Sword, and then I'll have to ask my son if I can borrow it. But it would be
maybe the time, you know.
Yeah, when those Mega Knobs land outside 9 inches, and you're like, all right, I'm ready to flame you. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Man, I'm telling you, it's just all this stuff is just so hard to pick from. I mean, you think, because as soon as I read something, I go to the next one, I'm like, oh, billowing exhaust cloud, speed freak units, get to, subtract 1 from the hit. So, oh man, bikers, man, let me get those non-bikers back in there.
The Codex is just, it's got so much flavor to it. It's like, I play, like Dark Angels, like Space Marines. It's like, okay, well, they all have a 3-up save. They all have a sergeant. It's there's variety in there, but it is pretty much, it's, pretty standard, right? And then you get the Orc Codex, and it feels like every single unit has some cool little thing or some neat little rule or something, and I can't absorb it all, man. Like
there's a bunch. Well, we're talking about how to be aggressive and stuff with the Orcs, but I think the Orcs also have the power to be fairly defensive. The force field projecta stratagem and the Gretchen screens. I mean, these are going to be some things. I mean, here's the deal. If you go first against an Orc army and don't kill anything, you should probably just order a round of beers.
Yeah. Well, I think the Orc player would be obligated to buy you a round of beers.
Okay, yes, the Orc player should then, the war boss should then order a round of beers. So the force field projecta, use this stratagem at the start of the battle round, select a big mech model from your army until the start of the next battle round, increase the range of that model's custom force field ability to 18 inches. You can only use this stratagem once per battle. No big deal, because you're going to do it turn 1. So the force field projecta gives everybody an invulnerable save.
Is that a 5-up?
I believe so. Yeah, I think it's a 5-up.
If the model is equipped with a custom force field, friendly Orc units have a 5+ invulnerable save against attacks made with ranged weapons while they are wholly within 9 inches of it.
Now, isn't there a stratagem or something that will let him pump that up to like 18 inches?
That's what we just talked about. Yeah, that's the projecta.
Okay.
Yeah. So while a model equipped with a custom force field is embarked in a vehicle transporting it, has a 5+ invulnerable save. So not appropriate or not relevant to the stratagem. But the grot shields,
the meat shield.
Well, it's
just a force field made of grots. Like grot pyramids.
Grot
like
pyramids.
Pyramid. Yeah.
Like a bunch of cheerleaders.
That's what it is.
The grot
jet
shields,
skis.
this is after they've suffered, has been hit by a ranged weapon. Until the end of the phase, you can roll a d6 for each time the model of that unit loses a wound. So that means that you have your Big Mac. He pops his force field projecta. That's a 3 command point stratagem, by the way. And then you've got this unit of grot shields. So you've taken an army that does not traditionally have good saves, and if the terrain's not good, their saves are even worse. And with the grot shields, and so for 4 command points, I know it's a lot of command points, but that's why I was thinking about battalions and stuff like that. But for 4 command points, you've now created an anvil, a literal barrier. I'm talking about like Attack of the Clones coming, force field that really could blank the opponent's shooting. And so if your opponent does all this work, fires their 2,000 points at your army, and only manages to kill 60 to 90 points of Gretchen, that is demoralizing.
Yeah, that's a little bit of taking the wind out of somebody's sails.
Another reason I'm bringing this up is because it really needs to affect what your target priority is in rounds 1 and 2, and not getting distracted by some of this stuff. If you see Ludas next to the Big Mac, behind some Gretchen, and then a bunch of boys in front, you probably want to be killing boys.
When does that stratagem have to be popped to increase the force field?
At the start of the battle round.
Oh, okay. So you can't
start
wait.
of a battle round. Use the stratagem at the start of a battle round. So yeah, they would have to like say, I'm going to use this, and then if that happens, then you need to take a moment, pause, and reflect upon what your target priority is.
Right. I thought it would. I just want to make sure it wasn't right when a unit is declared as the target. Yeah.
No,
like come on.
Start of battle round. That's some good writing right there.
It's way too much like a Knight Ion Shield. It's just rude.
Yeah.
Just rude.
I'm just pointing it out there that these are the things that should really make you maybe alter your plan. You might not alter your plan, but you at least need to think about it. Like if you are, let's say you've got 100 scatter lasers in your army. I don't know who's doing that right now, but maybe we see that come back. Then you don't care about the extra 5+. But if you're going to be firing some, just a handful of 3-shot weapons or something downrange, hoping to kill some Ludas, the chances you killing those Ludas just dramatically decreased. Or worse, killing the trucks that are, that are blocking the Ludas, that the Ludas are in. And so then
which they then loot and get an additional armor save.
Yeah, and then you finally kill the truck, and then the Ludas get out, and then they pop out the Grot shields, which is what I'm hoping I can do also. So I don't know what the list looks like. I think I probably talked about 4,000 points of list ideas. I don't know what the list is going to look like.
How many points are allowed in tournaments again?
Yeah, well, look, I might play on 2 tables with the Green Tide.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, let's take a quick break. We've gushed about the Orks a little bit. I'll take a quick break, and I want to talk about something that I encountered in a tournament recently that I thought was really good that I pass on. Maybe some folks can benefit from.
Right on.
FTN is brought to you by Bell of Lost Souls. Check out www.bols.org for the best daily hobby articles on the web.
Hey everyone, we are back. I still got Chris and Ricky here.
I'm in Outdia.
I don't even know what he said.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Paul's in India. I'm in Outdia. So I'm not India.
Now see, when I do the editing, and I'm going to leave this part in, people are going to not hear the long pauses in between everything. Like this the dead cold silence.
It's Ricky's cricket. Mind floating out in space.
Just edit in cricket.
No, it's not floating out in space. It's us staring at our computers at you disappointingly.
They can't all be winners. They can't all be winners.
I feel like I'm winning right now.
You know what? He's pulling out a little notebook, just scratching that one out.
I wish you could see that there is not a notebook. That you just... This real genius cannot be fabricated, my friends.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so yeah, talking about this tournament I recently went to, and one of my opponents, he had a really cool way of keeping track of what he was doing, and I thought it was really good, and I want to share that. But before that, I want to share a word from our sponsor, Discount Games Inc. I've been talking with Jay from Discount Games. Please email him. They offer Games Workshop. They have all kind of products at a really good discount, and they have loyalty and rebate programs. You can email them about this, jay@discountgamesinc.com. They're going to be having some Black Friday through Cyber Monday specials as well. That may be up on their website, but you can definitely email him at jay@discountgamesinc.com. He's going to be more than happy to share it with you, I'm sure. I think there's going to be some promotions on some of their overstock items. There may be some new items. Maybe check if you haven't gotten already the Blackstone Fortress game. See if you can pick that up from them. That game is going to be awesome. I've watched some playthroughs online. I can't wait to that's another thing, man. I want to be building so I can show this off to you guys, the Blackstone Fortress models. But anyway, hit Jay up. I
just want to see an army of men of iron come out from this box.
Hit Jay up at discountgamesinc.com. A great person. You've heard him on the show a few weeks ago. I've been a great person to interact with. Really happy for him to support the show. And the way that we can reward folks for supporting the show is supporting them. So please check out his website and email him for this promotion he has coming up. We would really much appreciate it. Thank you very much. So playing one of my opponents, he was playing Knights. Knights have tons of guns. And he had a slip of paper that had each one of the names of the guns written on them, or one of the weapons written on them. And this was like a tiny, 1 inch by 2 inch piece of paper with just the name written on it, that he would, during he was declaring his shots, he would put those pieces of paper next to what his targets were. So when you get in to the step of rolling all the dice, there was absolutely no confusion about where the shots were going. Now, because sometimes, look, when you're doing a shooting phase, and even when your best intent, let's say you have to go look up what a weapon does. You have to look up the range of a weapon is it 36 or 48 or whatever? Your opponent may have a question, and he may be convinced that it's different than whatever it is that you're doing, and so 2-3 minutes go by, and then you have to come back and start your process of shooting again. And where were you? Did you fire the Iron Storm missiles at this unit or that unit? Your opponent may not know. Even if you were dead accurate about what you're doing, your opponent may have a different opinion. Who knows? But this system that he was using, largely for his own accounting, was pretty good. I thought it was great. And I think if that's something that you're running into to where your opponents are having a hard time tracking, or you're having a hard time tracking where you're at on your third gun or whatever, that might be something you can use too.
It's a little more organized than my tried and true method of just asking my opponent what I was doing 3 times. So... it's a technique.
Living dangerously, Ricky. Living dangerously.
I live in a world of trust.
I would shoot my own scouts. Well, I trust you. I guess you're right.
I don't know that I would fire the volcano cannon at that single sniper. I don't know that I would do that.
Well, if I declared it, you're right.
Yeah. The thing with me, I said, I felt like it was really good, especially when you're dealing with some of these. There's several reasons why I thought it was good. One, it's notes, right? It's keeping you accurate. It's letting you be, I guess, decisive, and it does remove confusions and questions. But I think it's also a time-saving tool, and I think it's also a way of communicating with your opponent. You know, we talk about all the time that the way that you mitigate sportsmanship issues largely are not because someone is being a bad sport or trying to be a bad sport. It's because that one of the two of us has a different perception of what's actually going on, and that creates friction. I think
that right there is kind of the best part of what your opponent there was doing, is that just being very clear and transparent about what guns are about to go where. Because I can't remember every weapon in 40k, and I don't know how many times I've asked my opponent the same weapon. Every turn, I'm like, okay, what's that gun do again? Okay, what's that gun do again? So it would be very nice if my opponent just had that. I was like, look, dude, here.
He didn't have the stats on the card, but that's where I was going to the next thing. It's like if the next evolution of this is a quick write of the strength and AP and range on that note.
Yeah.
I mean, this was just for him. This was just for him to keep track of. But I thought, man, that's a good idea. And that is actually doing so many different things that may not have been. This guy was not. I mean, there was no sportsmanship issues. I don't want to make it sound like there was something else going on, and this is, a way that he got around it. Like, no, this is not. I'm saying that a byproduct of what he's doing keys into so many things that we talk about in a tournament. And part of that is communication between you and your opponent.
I like that the clarity and the fact that it removes all question. I would stop short of saying, everybody, drop what you're doing and make a bunch of laminated cards and stuff like that. Just because there are people who need something like that. For real personal, just forgetfulness reasons. There are some people who need that for less than honest reasons. But I would say the majority of us can keep our facts straight.
Age of Sigmar makes, that GW makes the cards for Age of Sigmar that has like the entire unit entry on them. And they did it as well for Imperial Knights, and I want to say one or two others. I can't remember.
I picked them up for my Sylvaneth for sure.
Yeah.
Deacon also.
And I like those a lot because you can just pull out what you need for your army, and then you could just show them to your opponent if they have questions. And that is a really good tool. It's useful for you. It's good for your opponent. I wish they were a little smaller a lot of times because some of the older ones were gigantic. The new ones they made for Stormcast Eternals are a little bigger than a playing card. I really like those, and I would love to see those make their way more into 40k. A nice reference that you could just hand to your opponent with, like, a list of the rules that affect your models. Stuff like that is, it's what, $12 for you to have that. And it's a convenient thing for you to have at the table, so you're not having to pull the codex out and go through everything. You just have a couple little cards sitting beside your table and use those, and your opponent can just pick those up and look through them as well. They're nice tools to have, and I would love to see those become more popular in the game.
In general, I'm against game aids. Like I don't like all.
I was about to say.
I'm like a general. I just don't like all the stuff that clutter up the table, and you've got some system that I'm now supposed to cooperate with. I don't know. But let me say that I think some of them are really strong adds, like wound counters. In instance, I mean, I still use dice like I'm a caveman, but I think we've gotten to the point where
you Philistine.
Yeah, wound counters is probably where we need to be. Something that's not a 6-sided die stacked up. I think we probably
they get knocked over too easily.
Well, yeah, or you pick them up. I had a strong conversation with one of my best buddies about how many wounds were on one of my rune priests, like a strong. And I'm like, and we were actually filming the game. I'm like, dude, it's on the tape. It's on the tape.
I just feel like a referee has to go over to the box and like look in, and as the that's where we're going. That's where we're going.
Let me take it one step further. He was right.
Paul, this is your show. You get to be right. You just tell everybody you were right.
That's not how this works, Ricky.
Reasons, about like he was actually right. Like there wasn't, and I felt so bad. But like you think back to how many times does that happen? That's not a sportsmanship thing. Nobody's trying to like whatever. You just there was some confusion, and both people thought they were right. I mean that's it. Some of these things, like and you don't, of course, you don't need to do this for this unit of Guardians is shooting here, unless you're the kind of guys like with split fire, like these two Guardians are firing here, and these two Guardians are firing there. Like maybe you do need.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue that I have with game aids and things is when people lack the discipline to use them correctly when they're using them, but they're not using them right. So, and you ran into this with like Fantasy Flight games all the time. It's like, all right, well, at this stage, you're supposed to flip this card to the side and refresh this and put this token here and flip it over after you do the thing and the stuff and the place at the time and the, like you have to have a practice discipline with this kind of stuff if you're going to do it right.
Well, keep it simple. So some wound counters, maybe we need some wound counters, and then maybe we need some, indicators like this about where the units are firing.
Yeah, I'm all about it until I end up with a tackle box full of counters.
That's one of the reasons I'm against it. When people start pulling out all these little tokens and chits and stuff, I'm like, oh,
look at this thing I 3D printed.
Exhaust. And then, or my opponent's like, how do I know that you fortuned that unit? I'm like, well, I mean, number one, it's the only unit in range, so let's start there. or whatever.
That is the radio equivalent of cracking your knuckles, is that tone of voice.
Well, okay, all I'm saying is that there's a time and a place for them, I think, and I think we've gotten to a time to where where a couple of them will be really beneficial to things like time management within the tournament setting specifically, and that's really where I know it's a long way of getting to where I'm going. Is that this I felt sped up the overall game, and I don't know again if he needs that kind of thing to keep going and to keep the game moving or not, but that type of thing I think helped us move through our turns faster. And if that is something that helps you, that's something to consider. So I think keeping the ticky tack other management stuff that you're down to a minimum, and if you're going to be doing it, then it has to be practical, like a real defined purpose.
Yep, and it needs to be obvious. It needs to be really clear.
Yeah, that's a good point. Not
just to you, but also to your opponent.
Yeah, it's like when the demon psychic powers, people used to carry whiteboards and stuff, and it was always great. Like I don't know, it took maybe an extra 2 or 3 minutes during the front part of the game, but when they could look at it and go, these 9 psychers or whatever have certain powers, and would check them off as they went down the line, then that was another practical thing. I've had some personalized unit cards made in the past for demon princes back when I was running 3 or 4 demon princes or something like that. When you're dealing with gifts, and like all those those different things that used to be a big factor in the codexes before. But so they had a very specific purpose but what it was helping speed the game along and helping me effectively communicate with my opponent. And I think if that's actually what's happening with what you're doing, then it's good. And if it's just some other, if it doesn't satisfy both of those things, or it's doing a bunch of other stuff that somehow take away from those two things, then they're probably bad. So that's how I would go about deciding which game aids I use.
Personally, I think that everyone should use Sour Patch Kids as wound counters. If you have an Imperial
Knight,
Knight,
everybody would run out of wound counters every time you played against them, Ricky.
So that's my reward for killing your knight. I get 24 Sour Patch Kids. And you're going to get a great sportsmanship vote. That's all I'm saying.
This is only going to end in tears.
Tears of joy for everyone involved.
No, that's funny. I wanted to share that specifically just to because I do think that those unit cards that you're talking about, Ricky, are really cool, and I really like the fact that they exist in Sigmar because you don't have to be flipping through codexes.
Yeah, GW, give us more of that in 40k.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess they're trying it with the knights. I think the knight ones are a little bigger.
Yeah, they need to be more manageable. The knights are about the size as the Sylvaneth cards. When the new General's Handbook came out, I guess second edition of Age of Sigmar, I guess I should say, they come out with the Night Haunt and the Stormcast cards, and they are about. Oh wait, hold on, I've got one right here. They're 4 inches by 6 inches, so they're smaller. They're more manageable. Yeah. Yeah, they are smaller. That's still kind of a big, but if you made them too small, you wouldn't be able to read all the rules on them, right? So, like, if you look at them, they've got basically the war scroll for Sigmar, so it'd be the data sheet, but it's got all the stats there for the unit with all the weapons and everything. And if you had those for your army that you could just have right there handy, that you could just hand to your opponent anytime you have a unit that does some neat little stuff, you just hand that to them as you're moving them or doing whatever, and they can read and understand that rules interaction while you're doing it. And GW makes like $12 a person. Do it.
Switching gears for a minute, Blackstone Fortress. You're talking about the Men of Iron. That's a deep throwback to the lore.
Oh yeah, I as chief librarian of Forge Narrative, I may have done like a sports like cheer upon reading that.
Yes, it's kind of neat. The Blackstone Fortress, they promise they're going to support this game for a long, long time to come, which means they already have some things that's coming out. And that brought up a good question, or I think a comment we got on YouTube was like, man, I've just been buying everything that GW has been putting out, and he feels like he's getting a little fatigued.
Just, a little burnt out. Yeah.
It's tough. I mean, I understand it. I think that's something that we have conditioned ourselves to do, but it's a holdover from several years ago to when there was something only coming out every 6 months. Or something.
Yeah, that's. I've got customers who tell me, when like Blackstone Fortress, I'm like, well, we just bought this. I've got a buddy. He's got like games that he's never even put together because the next game comes out and he gets excited about it. Of course, I want everybody to buy everything, right? Like, store's got to make money, but. Responsibly, you got to think, is this a game that I have time for? Is this a game that I'm going to, put the time in and enjoy? At some point, we have to just step back and say, because I think 40K players have it, I think we have it in our head that because something says 40K on it, we got to have it, it's ours, it's for 40K. For the
Don't take that dream from me, Ricky.
Okay, well, I mean, feel free. I will sell you one. But you got to think Blackstone Fortress is really tapping more into that Hero Quest community, like dungeon crawl people. People who like Dungeons and Dragons and dungeon crawls and cooperative gaming and stuff like that. It's not a miniature war game, but it is closer to a role playing game or a cooperative board game that is set in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. So it's really geared more towards another type of gamer. Now, granted, just because we play 40K does not mean that we are just 40K players. I love board games. I love card games. There's tons of games out there that I love, and I love the fact that now they have the Age of Sigmar or 40k universe involved in them. That's great. But I think you need to be honest with yourself and say, is this a game that I'm going to make time for?
There's no one's going to shame you because you didn't buy that box and put it on your shelf.
Yeah. I will.
But I think we carry with us some of that within ourselves. We feel like an addiction. Whatever. We feel obligated to get it, and that's
especially if a model. If you play Tau, or I guess if you're a Kroot fanboy like me, or Eldar, or you just Sisters, anything that has that one model in there. And heavens to Betsy, if you're a Chaos player, look at all the Chaos stuff in there.
Look, I was going to say, a lot of that stuff. Granted, it has 40k rules, but you're probably not going to field the 40k games. These are except the Chaos Lord.
the Chaos stuff, though, like the Renegade Guardsmen, people, there are tons of Renegade Guard players out there who are foaming at the mouth.
But people should buy them. If you want the models and you want to do anything with them, buy it. Like this is not a talk about. I am not going to talk anyone out of buying anything ever. That is, I also have the same compulsion. But where I'm going with this is that, I guess what you're saying is I completely agree with, is that be realistic. If you don't think your buddies are going to want to play with you and it doesn't have something in it you specifically want, then you don't got to get it right now.
Yeah, don't feel obligated like you have to buy it. Nobody's going to jump out and slap your wrist because you didn't buy that product. GW is going to get your money one way or the other.
Just like with the Augur Thaumaturge that came out in Silver Tower. And then I can't remember the name of the big baddie, the Zinch guy. With the Pan's Labyrinth head and stuff.
Gaunt Summoner.
Yeah, Gaunt Summoner. Those got really separately.
Yeah, that's the one.
That stuff got really separately. It's coming.
Yeah.
It's going to come. These are plastic kits. This stuff is going to you're going to find its way out separately. Now, with that said, Blackstone Fortress and Warhammer Quest are amazing games and really worth playing. I've said this 100 times. I don't look at them as gateway games. I'm not inviting people over to play this game. So I think they're going to be turned into 40k players. I don't think that at all. I think that this is a game in and of itself onto itself, and that's something we're going to see more and more as Games Workshop moves forward, that these games are going to be their really own thing. It's not going to be people trying to staple on things from 40k or whatever. I think we're going to find, you can even look at their job postings and stuff that seem to kind of indicate this, is that they're wanting to fill in people that this is their thing. And so it can be your thing too. You could just be a GW board game player. You could just be a Silver Tower player. You could just be a Blood Bowl player, and you're going to have a fulfilling relationship with your purchasing.
Yeah,
that you're going to get. Yeah, stuff.
And I think the big takeaway from that is not every GW game is going to be for everyone, and that's okay. And GW recognizes that, and as retailers, we're even told that we're hey. Blackstone Fortress and Shadespire, Night Vault, Warhammer Underworlds especially. When we talk our GW reps and stuff, they tell us, hey, there are other customers out there. You want to be gearing this towards, more like card player type, collectible card games and board game enthusiasts instead of to your normal 40k players and stuff. Because Games Workshop fully recognizes that, your Warhammer community is going to be spending their money on Warhammer stuff. And, the Shadespire and Night Vault players are going to be playing that. So, GW recognizes that everyone has a limited income to spend on it, and they don't expect us all to go out and buy every single thing that comes out because people don't have the time or money.
Your gaming experience is not going to suffer because you're not doing that. Play the other thing. Play the thing you got right now. Or if there's something else comes out that you think you're actually going to do, where your buddies you talk about, like, oh yeah, this would be cool if we did this. All right, let's pick it up. Let's get into it. Like Titanicus is a great
one example. Of the things, and that specifically kind of brings up what I was thinking of is I'm not one who does New Year's resolutions. I figure why waste the time thinking about it, but I have been thinking about kind of a themed month for hobby goals, going forward every month that, I want to build and paint and play at least one game of Xbox game that I have this month, and use that as a motivation for me to play. Find somebody else who plays or who's interested in playing. Set a date, get stuff ready by then, and you can still do your other stuff in the meantime. Play tournaments with armies you got, or make the new models you need for your army as part of that goal. But I feel like that's going to be the best way for me to get from just staring at the massive piles of plastic I've got to actually having them painted and ready to play. And that goes for Silver Tower, that goes for the Rogue Trader game, the Kill Team expansion.
Mm-hmm.
All that stuff, it's all stuff that I want to have, all stuff I want to have painted and play with. But without having some kind of purpose behind it, it's hard to motivate myself to work on it.
And I think another thing that will help on games like Blackstone Fortress, here's the way it always works. You have 4 or 5 friends who are super pumped about the game, and 4 of them finally convince one of them to buy it. And then none of them help that poor guy put all those models together and hopefully paint them. And then they sit around saying, hey, when are we going to play? And that dude has probably, already thrown half the models across the room. So my advice, one, if you all aren't willing to go in and chip in on the game, and that's perfectly logical. It's going to be at one person's house, whatever, right? But at least offer to help him put the models together.
You got no excuse.
Yeah, paint a unit, do something, right? Like, help. Because four of you, up to 5 players, I think, can play Blackstone Fortress. If all of you aren't contributing in some way and invest and put a little investment into it, so that you can, get that enjoyment out of it. Otherwise, that guy's going to just resent you. It's like when you're playing Dungeons and Dragons and you don't bring snacks for the DM, and then the whole party gets killed.
See,
that was your fault.
That's some serious heresy right there.
Give experience points for people that bring snacks.
Yep.
I guess, but when you finally succumb to the fact that you absolutely need that Rogue Trader and you absolutely need that Eldar Ranger and that Chaos Lord, that's okay too. No hobby shaming. That's it. No hobby shaming at all. Let people do what they want to do, and don't shame yourself if you feel like you just got to give one a pass or whatever.
On the flip side of that, Paul, who I am very proud of is our Val Heffelfinger, because he is the most self-aware gamer when it comes to this sort of thing. I recently saw one of his Facebook posts. He was excited about a game, and I can't remember which one it was, but he said, I cannot wait to buy this and put it on the top shelf in my closet alongside the other games that I have yet to open. And it was like, at least he gets it. He knows what he's doing there. So you got to admire people who at least admit to themselves they're getting it just so they can have it.
So to be honest, we just do what you want to do, and there's absolutely no shame in it. Guys, I need to wrap this up. I'm actually heading into work. This is, whereas I normally record in the evenings, I'm actually recording in the morning right now for you guys. You guys, it's y'all's evening.
Yeah, I'm going to bed. So.
Y'all have a great rest of y'all's evening, and we will talk again soon. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Good night, world.
Handle the truth.